Deb Cooper with the Canine Chronicle, bringing you a table talk update with a group of very esteemed individuals. I am very excited to have with me today Mari-Beth O'Neill, Jerry Klein, and Susan Hamil. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about how the AKC Veterinary Outreach Program has basically made lemons out of lemonade. So Mari-Beth, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the Vet Outreach Program, what it is?
Great. Thanks so much, Deb. So I'm Mari-Beth O'Neill, Vice President of Sport Services, and I inherited the Vet Outreach Program in 2013. And at that time, it hadn't really been staffed for a year or two, and or had been not totally supported because of the staffing issues. But anyway, so what we do is we have a staff, we attend a few of the major veterinary conferences throughout the year with a booth to have some presence. We monitor and we actually coordinate the vet scholarships that are awarded to vet students. We did update the criteria for eligibility to apply to include some background or experience in AKC events, participating as a breeder, multiple things, so that we're rewarding people who have been involved in the sport and AKC events. And the other thing that I've been involved with is coordinating our lunch and learns. And prior to COVID, what we actually did was because the veterinary student schedules are so busy and it's so difficult to actually get any scheduled time to meet with them, what you do to coordinate this through one of the clubs. And it may be a canine club, it may be the theriogenology club, the companion animal club, whichever. But I reach out to the different schools to try to coordinate through one of the clubs the opportunity for AKC to host a lunch. And then because of the minimal amount of time, it being literally a 50-minute period usually for lunch, was to coordinate a local individual from the fancy to speak with them, with providing them with an AKC packaged presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, as well as giving them breed ID guides to hand out to all of the students attending. And AKC provided lunch. And we had some wonderful people who went to schools and gave these presentations for us, including Susan Hamil and her husband John, and local breeders like Bill Shelton and Becky Williams, who's a vet. And I tried to find other veterinarians who were in a close proximity to schools throughout the country. And we had great people doing these, like Dr. Marty Greer and Fran Smith and others throughout the country, and I greatly appreciate their efforts and their willingness to do this for us. And we averaged, I averaged between 12 to 16 that we coordinated each year. And then COVID hit, and last January and February we had already done 6 of our lunch and learns, as we normally would, with people going to the schools and giving them. And then, of course, everything shuts down. And I think, oh, this is going to be a challenging year. And then I actually a student reached out to me and said, could we possibly do one of these virtually in the fall? And I said, oh, that's a great idea. And so I called Jerry and asked him if he would be willing to participate with me in doing these. And that way we would have some consistency in what the presentation is, and I get to participate as well, because I would only go to our local one at NC State and at the University of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So this was a great opportunity, and it ended up working out fabulously because we gave 14 of these webinars last fall between September and November. So Jerry and I spent a lot of time together virtually, and we were able to interact with an average of 30 to 50 students in each of those presentations. So it really was making lemonade out of a situation that the rest of us during COVID were sitting home going, oh no. And of course, we've all lived virtually throughout this time, and we appreciate all of everybody's. I think we all have Zoomed our way through many days.
Zoomed our way through the pandemic.
Right? A lot of days, right. And we've already done 6 of these Meet the AKC presentations so far this year, with 2 more scheduled for this week and a total of 14 for this spring. So keeping Dr. Klein busy, and greatly appreciate his participation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. We are waiting for our scholarships are due in a couple weeks, and I would like to. No, I can't announce this yet. So something to come in the future. Anyway, so Dr. Klein. I'm sorry, a little tease there, but I'm excited about it. Anyway, Dr. Klein, why don't you tell us a little bit about your position with AKC?
Thanks, Mari-Beth. My name is Jerry Klein. I'm a veterinarian, and I live in Chicago, Illinois. It's snowy today, Chicago. But I started out as a kid in a non-doggy family in Cleveland, Ohio, and talked my parents into getting a dog back in the 60s when we didn't know any better. So we got a dog from a pet shop. Because that's what people did in those days if you didn't know any better. And that's kind of why I'm always very sensitive to being critical of that, because look where it ended with me. It took me on a life journey. And with that, I got interested in dog shows and showed my wire fox terrier unsuccessfully year after year. And my dad had to drive me because I couldn't drive yet. But then eventually, because we couldn't get a better dog, he was a great pet, but he wasn't a good show dog. I started handling for a lot of other people and handlers and get to know breeders of all breeds. And I got to learn quite a bit that got me a little differentiated from the other applicants applying to vet school. And that was my being a little bit out of the box. And with that, through vet school, I finally had a litter or 2 of wire fox terriers, and I met someone in Afghan hounds, which is my breed of today, and developed a nice line of Afghan hounds that have done really well. And I started judging as well. So when I practiced medicine in Chicago, became an emergency vet. And it wasn't planned, but I was an emergency vet for 35 years. And so you see a lot of stuff in emergency medicine in Chicago or anywhere. One of the busiest emergency practices in the country. But after 35 years, the mind and body gets a little old. So American Kennel Club asked if I would join them in 2015 as their chief veterinary officer, which is basically a liaison between the AKC family and its breeders and policy, the general public, to discuss anything and all things canine health, for anything pre-existing and future commitments. But also they asked to develop and grow a trusting relationship with regional and local veterinary associations. And I mean that because, so in other words, there was a little misunderstanding for many years against the veterinary profession, my profession, and people that I was also associated with, purebred dog breeders. So kind of this triangle of trying to be this mediator. And I was very humbled and honored to be asked to be chief veterinary officer in 2015. So with that, I speak at veterinary conferences like the AVMA, discussing things like either canine health issues, but also recently when I speak to vet students, because I think it's very important to realize that vet students are a different generation than my peers. Sometimes it could be our children or even our grandchildren at that age, and they have a different way of thinking, and we can't keep thinking the same way we had because they don't necessarily think the same way we do. So what do we talk about in these lunch and learns? We talk about AKC and purebred dogs and how it's pertinent in the past to our society, in present day, how it's purebred dogs are affecting our society, whether our detection dogs, right now they're training dogs to do COVID detection or bomb sniffing dogs, and how purebred dogs have filled that niche throughout the past civilization and today. But regarding to veterinarians and vet students, it's very pertinent as to what they're learning in classes and how they're going to be practicing medicine in the future. And I mentioned things like the AKC Canine Health Foundation and how important it is for the research, what they're learning about purebred dogs as often a template. And a lot of the research is funded by purebred dog parent clubs or all breed clubs. But I also mentioned things like AKC Reunite and how it's affecting society with their disaster relief trailers, and even things like the AKC Humane Fund, which funding domestic shelters for people who are women that accept pets. The point of it being that it's pertinent in today's society. And the reward has been that through these lunch and learns, where I used to speak at conventions and maybe speaking to 400 or 500 people once, we're getting sometimes 500 total per quarter. The average is anywhere between 40 to 50 students at a time. And what the real reward is getting emails back about people that I used to say, if you think you know about AKC, hopefully you'll learn a little bit more. And if you don't, hopefully it'll intrigue you enough to look into the various aspects and resources, AKC, Purebred Dogs, Canine Health Foundation, and getting comments like we didn't know, we're interested, and even more importantly, how can we get involved? I think that is the most endearing thing, the fact that you can have that kind of impact. So I thank the powers that be, the people that kind of asked me to join them. And Mari-Beth has been incredible in getting these things started. So I give her complete credit. And she's a great dinner partner as well. So with that, I want to turn it over to Sue.
Okay, so I am Susan Hamil, and I am currently the chair of the Delegates Committee for Canine Health. And one of our goals is to improve the relationship between purebred dogs and veterinary medicine. And I would have to say that the Veterinary Outreach Program, especially since Mari-Beth O'Neill took it over, has just been outstanding. We've reached so many veterinary students, and we've come to understand that that's really where the future is for us in influencing veterinary medicine as veterinary students. So for us, it's really important that veterinary outreach continue these lunch and learns, which I think the pivot in the virtual reality that we have today has just been amazing. And I think that was so smart to get that done and reach so many veterinary students. I started my career in veterinary medicine in the late 1970s. And I've been a hospital manager, boarding kennel manager. I belong to the state and the local veterinary association. So I have a lot of interaction day to day with the pet owning public and veterinarians. And I really have seen a true shift in attitude, particularly in the last probably 5-8 years, with young veterinarians coming out of college, existing veterinarians, and also the public. One of the big adjuncts to Mari-Beth's Lunch and Learn program has been the Parent Club Health Conference. We have that every other year. It's sponsored by Purina. We hold it in St. Louis. Parent Club delegates are invited to attend. And through the sponsorship of AKC, Canine Health Foundation, and OFA, we have a total of 25 to 28 students. We invite one student from every veterinary school in the country. And we pay their expenses. We underwrite the fee for attending the program. They get to mingle with the delegates. They get to mingle with the top researchers in purebred dogs, the things that we're interested in that CHF funds. We've had over 150 students go through that program, and they stay in touch with each other. Eddie Zook at OFA maintains a Facebook page for those kids, and we found that they've been some of our biggest advocates in day-to-day practice, in research, and in organized veterinary medicine. Mm-hmm. So I just thank AKC, and particularly Mari-Beth, and delighted that they've included Dr. Klein in this, because we need a veterinary spokesperson. I know that in these lunch and learns and parent club conferences, topics of the day in purebred dogs, such as brachycephalic breeds, early spay neuter, those things are all coming up, and we have the opportunity face to face to talk to those young students.
It's amazing. It really is. I've been myself, victim to having people who are either clients of mine or bought a puppy from me, go to clinics that were not as familiar with the breeder community or the purebred dog community, and, automatically wanted, they wanted to spay their bitch when, you know, they were doing something else, and they were very uncomfortable with it, you know, I mean, and this is the kind of thing that we need, right? This is the communication that helps that process and helps educate these people, you know, affording them the opportunity. So it is amazing. It's wonderful that, you know, all of you are spending the time and effort to do that kind of reach out.
Right.
Is there anything that the Fancy can do to help support and promote this program?
Yeah. So one other thing that we have been able to help coordinate, and with the help of some Albury shows, is to have what we call Tour of the Dog Show. Mm-hmm. And so we've done this for both some veterinary schools as well as for vet tech programs, vet tech at schools that are in close proximity to an event. That's one of the things. And unfortunately, we were just sort of getting that moving when COVID hit. But we've had some very successful outings. I actually had a group of students from Penn come to Kennel Club of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And in one instance, it was fabulous because one of their fellow students was a participant at the show.
That's amazing.
Sure. Showing her Irish Water Spaniel. So they went to speak. They stayed to cheer her on in the group, but they and it being the televised event was exciting for them. But they arrived at 10 o'clock in the morning. I met them at the front door, and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, one of the students found me and thanked me for offering them this opportunity, which was so neat. And while they were there, we arranged for them to meet with several people, but one of which was one of the staff from Purina, who I think blew their minds by telling them how many veterinarians Purina employs, as well as a recent veterinary school graduate who is specializing in dentistry. And it was great for them, to meet someone who was closer to their age and, currently active, and we're literally talking to him as he was about to go in the ring with his toy poodle. So, it was really, those kind of situations are really meaningful. I mean, to see, so that they can see it up close and in person. So once we get going again, if your club would be interested in hosting, and it could be a vet tech group, it could be veterinary students. I've also been able to speak to a couple ag classes, and those are offered at all the colleges, or maybe a lot of colleges have, and they're the pre-vet students where we've done some programs as well. And I invited them to attend our local NC State group that came to our dog shows, and several of the ag class students joined us as well. So I'm happy to help with that if your club might be interested in participating and doing this in the future.
What a great idea. And another great way to introduce people to the dog show and try to get, younger members so we can, keep all of these clubs going. I mean, that's so absolutely. We will do that indeed. Anything else that you can think of in terms of, awareness or anything like that, make sure that, we know, so I can encourage at least, on my end, the Fancy to be involved at least enough to, keep that club involvement there.
Right.
Because I think it'll be critical.
One of the other things, I am the staff liaison for our Therio residency program, where AKC, CHF, and the Therio Foundation fund residencies for veterinarians. Sure. And we have, anyway, there have been 7 or 8, and there will be 2 new ones that they will be announced shortly. Okay. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to see the Therio programs growing and building caseloads at these schools. And that unto itself has been very positive for the students attending those schools to see how beneficial this is, and to create working relationships with breeders, and not just the desire to spay and neuter puppies and things. So learning to really interact well with their clientele.
Terrific.
Can I make one comment on that also? A couple of things. One is that prior to AKC establishing the Therio scholarships, there were schools, veterinary schools, that were closing down their theriogenology program. We had that at a number of schools. And now with this infusion of money and interest in small animal reproduction, that's been revived. It's gotten the school's attention. It's gotten the students' attention. And the other shift that I've also seen is AKC is now becoming a resource for these young veterinarians. They know that we have AKC Reunite, so we're involved in disaster work. They know that we have Canine Health Foundation, and that becomes a resource. If there's research being done, they can call the office and talk to Dr. Carpenter, Dr. Andrea, and get the latest on the updates, who's doing research in those fields. I mean, that's probably the biggest shift, is these veterinary students and their existing practice partners are learning that we are a resource of information and we are the authority on information. And I think that's probably been a real seismic shift there in the students. And I just think that's tremendous. You don't achieve that easily.
Right.
And without time, effort, and fun. So I think any way the Fancy can support, Reunite can support CHF, understand the scholarship aspect of it. OFA provides the health registry benefit for it, where the students can actually see that breeders really do want to produce healthy dogs and are willing to spend the money to do so. So I just think it's been a great confluence, and we've got the right people at the right time at the right moment.
Terrific.
If I may say something, Deb, one of the reasons I was so excited to do this is because we're here to tell vet students and veterinarians about AKC breeders and the fanciers. By the same token, I want AKC fanciers and breeders to know that we're doing this for veterinary students and veterinarians. And because I don't know if they all are aware of all the things that AKC that I have learned, even in 5 years, and I was involved in purebred dogs for most of my life.
Right.
So what I've learned, I think a lot of people are kind of like not as aware of all aspects of it. And I want them, I really, hopefully they appreciate that the efforts that Mari-Beth is doing and other programs, Canine Health Foundation, Rena, as you mentioned, and how they're so applicable to today's society. We can hold our head up high that what we are doing is in the best name of purebred dogs and in dogs in general. And that's really important, to have this attitude of being proud of who and what we are and doing it for the right reasons.
Amen. Well, I thank all of you for spending time with me today, and most of all for spending the time that you do with another aspect of outreach that, you know, our Fancy is so desperately in need of. And you know, Mari-Beth, you know, we all owe you a big thank you for all of the hard work that you do and coming up with some of these ideas. More importantly, listening to other people's ideas. And, you know, with that note, I will say, you know, I have learned that, you know, you are certainly someone who is open-minded. If people have suggestions for any kind of outreach, you know, shoot Mari-Beth a note and, you know, let's kind of go with it and see what else we can come up with, because I don't think we can do too much outreach, can we?
No, we can always try. We just keep plugging along here.
There you go. So
thank you, Deb, for your time today, too.
It is my pleasure. And thank you all. And everyone, again, don't forget, if you have ideas or if your club is interested in, you know, giving an opportunity for some kind of a show walkthrough, please reach out to Mari-Beth. We'll see y'all soon. Until next time.